Blunt Cuts is a podcast fueled by creativity, curiosity, and empowerment.
We cut through the daily mess of life. This is unfiltered honesty.
Park your passive at the door. This is Blunt Cuts. Welcome to Blunt Cuts. I'm CJ, and today we're talking about yoga. Joining me in the studio is Ashley Katzakian, founder of Ashley Katzakian Healing in the Virtual Yoga Sanctuary. Welcome, Ashley.
Thanks so much. I'm so excited to be here and talking about something that I love so deeply and wanted to share it with everyone.
Oh, me too. Thank you for being here. Yoga has been a saving grace for me, so I can't wait to kind of hear your story with yoga as well. I'm just so intrigued to kind of hear how you found it because I'm excited to share how I found it.
Yeah, I am excited. I feel like I tell my story so many times. It's boring to me now, but I'm excited to hear yours also. My story is pretty like multiple folds. When I was going to college, one of my supervisors had gathered our team and said that he was going to go check out this yoga studio and knew that I was really into like working out and fitness and whatever, and invited me if I wanted to come. It was a Bikram studio. So I am very competitive, and in a Bikram class, you have to stay in the room. They almost like force you to. It's highly encouraged.
I've never heard of Bikram.
So Bikram yoga is a style of hot yoga that is a series of the same postures over and over again. So it's a set sequence basically, and it's very intense. And they encourage you to stay in the room, not drink water until a certain point in the sequence. But the competitive athlete inside of me was like, I can do this. This is like,
I've got this.
Totally. It was like a challenge. And to be able to stay in the room the whole time and then walk out at the end and you're like, I did that. Heck yeah, I did that. And then it kind of became an addiction, but I was in college, so I was poor. So I stopped going because I could only go to like one or two classes. The free trials is what, everyone always hops around.
Totally.
To studio.
Like, if you haven't done that, I mean, you follow the Groupons and then you go, okay, it's a week here free. Like, which ones have I checked off my list? Like, it becomes a little bit of a scavenger hunt if you're like on a budget searching for yoga studio time.
And then I've always been like, they're all going to talk to each other and know that I've gone to all.
There's a yoga blacklist somewhere that I'm sure our faces are on.
Right, exactly.
Funny.
So that was in college, and I went and I'd kind of go back and forth, and I'd have this kind of off and on relationship with yoga, which was mostly Bikram, because I liked that physical intensity part of it. I felt like I was getting a workout, and I was also conquering something. And then when I was that same summer, I got accepted to go to a artist intensive in India. I was a theater major, and it was a theater program that was based out of New York, who organized this whole trip to India that I applied to, got accepted to, and was like, okay, Dad, I'm going to India. Bye.
Amazing.
Yeah, it was probably the best experience of my life. We were there for 3 weeks and studied ancient Indian art forms. So martial arts, dance, acting, singing, and every morning we would do yoga. So I got this 3-week intensive of yoga every morning, which was also so different from being here because it was, this is the posture, do this posture the way you're supposed to do this posture. So that was really great. So then when I came back, again, I was like, yoga's really awesome. I really want to keep doing this, but I'm poor. I'm like, I don't have the means or the tools to go do it. Flash forward to moving to Minnesota, and again, I did the same thing where I wanted to connect to something that I knew, and I would checked out the Bikram studio here, and I checked out a couple other studios, and then was like, this is really expensive. So kind of stopped. And then a year after I was here, there's always a yoga story, right? Someone always has a yoga story, and this is where it gets really good and kind of gritty. So anyone that ever practices, I always like to know their story because it's kind of this really big turning point in their lives, usually is. So I was here for a year. It was my birthday. It was like a Thursday or Tuesday, some weird random day. And I had taken the day off because it was my birthday. And why do you want to work on your birthday? And I had like done my morning thing and was like, cool, it's my birthday now. What I'm going to do expecting to hang out with all my friends, and then realized it was like a Tuesday and all of my friends were working as you normally do. So I kind of had this moment of anxiety of like, well, do I go do something or do I not? Or what do I do? And it's my one day and I'm losing time and kind of going back and forth. And I finally decided I was going to go on a hike to Taylor's Falls by myself because I'm a strong, independent woman and I can do that. And I shouldn't be scared to go do that.
No, exactly.
Exactly.
Go, girl.
So, yeah. So I kind of paced in my house probably about half an hour, like, oh, do I go? Do I not go? It's going to take 30 minutes to get there and 30 minutes to come back. And then what am I going to do for the rest of my day? And total like fear of missing out happening over here. So finally I was just like, enough of this. I'm going to go on my hike. So I got in my car, got on the freeway, started driving to Taylor's Falls, got about 5 exits down the freeway and had talked myself out of it. Turned off the freeway, turned back around, got to where I had gotten on the freeway, talked myself back into it, turned back around to head back to Taylor's Falls. And I did this, I kid you not, 5 times. 5 times.
Oh
5 times. I was so stuck. I was like, who are my friends here? What am I doing? Everything that I had moved to Minnesota for, I was not doing. I didn't have a path. It was the first time I had not been in school or had a direction in my whole life. So I was so lost. I was so like, what is happening? So I was physically, mentally stuck, but I was literally stuck in this loop of driving back and forth. And I had pulled off the freeway for the last time, and my dad had called me to wish me a happy birthday. And what are you doing? He asked, and I told him, and please don't go by yourself. And the normal dad thing. And I broke down, like in my car, started crying. My dad's like, are you crying? What is, and of course you don't want your dad to be worried. I was like, no, I gotta go.
No, just ate something really spicy.
Yeah, exactly. Hung up the phone and just had this meltdown in my car, this moment of like, what the heck am I doing? Did not go on the hike. Went back to my house. A friend ended up calling me. We went to lunch. It was a beautiful, beautiful day, but that had happened. And I sat in my house later that night and the next couple of days and called my brother, and my brother said, do 2 things in the next year that you want to do and just do them. And I was like, oh yeah, it's that easy. Why didn't I think of that before? So one of those things out of nowhere was this desire to get certified to teach yoga. And again, I had had this on and off relationship with it. I had no idea why I wanted to get certified. I didn't know if I wanted to teach. I didn't know what I wanted. I knew I wanted to be back in school. And I knew I wanted a structure, and I knew that I wanted to accomplish something. For whatever reason, my gut said yoga. So I did a bunch of research at the studios around here and who offered teaching programs. And someone mentioned to me that one of the studios had a scholarship training program or scholarship program. So I was like, I'm not going to get that, but I'll apply to it anyways. And I did. And like the next day they wrote back and they're like, congratulations, you got this like tuition scholarship. And I just knew. I know.
That is incredible.
Yeah. So
meant to be.
Everything kind of aligned. My, I was nannying, and my boss at the time was like, we'll make whatever you need to make happen and work. Flash forward to that, going through that program for a year, and a studio opened up right by my house, or was in the process of opening up. And I did that really creepy thing where like I just walked over there and was like, hey, what's going on? Inserted myself right into the situation. And the studio manager at the time wanted to hire me, and we did a mock class and kind of hired me right on the spot. And she's now become one of my best friends. But so I had a job even before I was done with my training, and taught there for a year. And that was kind of the beginning of my. So it's long. Sorry.
Oh my
it's
gosh.
like
No.
multiple folds. But
what a journey. And I think, some of those things of coming to that moment of just lostness and that uncomfortable feeling of, what do I do? And passions are a real thing. And, we've talked about it a little bit here before, but passions are something that like you can't sleep, you can't eat. They're not always soothing. Sometimes they're like in your head until you do them. And those are a beautiful thing. And it sounds like yoga's kind of your passion and was your passion, and you didn't even know why. And you
kind of kept like inserting itself back into my life. And now, I kind of have understanding of why that was happening, but I will tell everyone it saved me. Like it was this moment of here's what I love, and it's showing itself. And now how can it help other people?
Yoga saved me too.
Yay!
You kind of entered yoga in this super competitive nature. I'm a competitive person when it comes to like goal checking and task listing and organizing and like work projects and just like getting the next one. And I kind of have a little bit of an addictive personality when it comes to that. But with working out, I am the least competitive. Like sports were always meh. I was just never super into it. But I think it stems from when I have scoliosis. And it was found when I was in 4th grade, which is significantly earlier in the train. I think they start checking people in like sixth grade, something like that. You remember bending over, like somebody using this little metal thing on you. Anyway, I have scoliosis and my mom does too. And this is a very like genetic thing and part of my life. Well, when I was 12, I had back surgery. And I distinctly remember kind of going through this process and the doctors just being like, you can never jump on a trampoline. You can never do this. Like your spine is fused and you're going to have these 18-inch rods like on the side of your spine. And it was very corrective for me. It worked very well. The braces, the things like that never did. So after surgery, I was just kind of like, okay, I have to stop the sports that I loved, which was like gymnastics. And I was in basketball, never super great at that. I'm tall and lanky and it just, skinny people playing basketball is really hilarious to watch. Anyway, I digress. But so, I went through this whole childhood and life of, okay, I can't really do super contact sports. And so I played tennis, very individual sport. And then, I did speech and all the other things. Like I just kind of left this idea of like a super aggressive physical life kind of behind me. Well, in my 20s, I really started having pain. An intense pain to the point that like I had prescription narcotics. I was on a Vicodin a day. And this was post-college because I remember like being at a work desk. I think it was when I started like out in the workforce. I was at a desk more often, not as moving, just walking around from campus thing to campus thing. Like I wasn't moving. I was more stagnant and I was in excruciating pain, couldn't get up, couldn't move. So doctors were like, all right, well, we just need to do injections. So I would have my limit of injections per year. So spinal injections of cortisone. And I was on a Vicodin a day at least, if not 2. And that's a lot of narcotics for a 20-something-year-old to be on, right?
It's a lot of narcotics, period.
In general. So, and it was just the thing that I couldn't move. Like I needed to get through that pain. And I was like, eventually, and I don't even remember like the turning point, but I was like, I've got to find something. I've got to find something to help me get over this. I don't want to be on this. I don't want to like be on these medications. Like I think there's got to be another way. So I started looking into massage and acupuncture and yoga kind of came out of that. And I think it was my acupuncturist who was like, have you tried yoga? Have you thought about it? Like, I'm like, I can't do yoga. I'm not flexible. Like I have metal rods. Like I have a fusion. Like how am I ever going to do yoga? Like this sounds completely like a waste of my time. So I actually met with, and I decided to go private lesson wise because I'm like, hey, here's the deal. I have anxiety when it comes to social situations as it is. And I know my limitations physically because I have like metal in my back. So let's get real. I need to have someone privately walk me through how to do this. I don't know. I had a book, I think Yoga Basics, I don't know, whatever. I got a book and I was like looking at it. I'm like, yeah, no, this shit is not happening. So, and I need people to like help coach and guide me through things. I know that I'm not a like self-learner when it comes to physical things. Other things, totally. But physical things for me, I needed someone. So I did the full free thing at Lifetime, actually. Shout out. But I met and it was not the studio that I was at, it was the person. And my private lesson person, Charlotte is absolutely the reason that I was able to get off of narcotics. So Charlotte and I did a lot of private sessions, and then I started taking her classes. And I would only go to her classes because she was my comfort person and she was my like yoga person, right? So I did yoga 3 times a week, solid for a year, religiously. I stuck to it. I followed the plan. Now I don't have pain. And this was, mind you, probably 5 years ago, 6 years ago when I really started this like habitual thing. I don't go to yoga regularly, but I still don't have pain. So I feel that even 5 years ago, that whole year of like religious commitment to 3 times a week to get my body A, stretched out, B, build core muscles that I didn't have that were supporting me in different ways, like I'm still pretty pain-free. Like I have my days, but I'm like, all right, got to get back on yoga. So I'll just do yoga like in my own time, in my own ways. But that's kind of my yoga story. Like, and it's amazing and incredible to me that like that commitment that I made for that full year, I'm still feeling 5 years later.
Yeah, that story is beautiful. And I think it probably resonates with so many people on so many different levels, because you touched on so many things that I was like, yes, yes, yes. I mean, the pain in your body and not knowing how to fix it, having one Band-Aid kind of a solution to our physical things that happen with medicine and narcotics and drugs and whatever, which can be amazing, but can also only be a Band-Aid or can, you know, mask other things.
Yeah, it was instant, but I knew that it had to be causing my body some pain internally and damage, right? And I wanted to kind of remove that piece of my life. And yeah.
Totally. You know, talking about how people don't want to go to a studio, but they also don't practice, but they're in this kind of like gray zone because they want to do something, but they feel really uncomfortable going to a studio because they don't know anything. So it's like people almost feel like they need a base level before they even enter a studio, which is so kind of absurd to me. Like, this is why you're going, is to learn and to practice, right?
It's just that fear, you know, and I think it's a total fear-based thing. And it's that idea of, I don't want to be the one in the room that everyone's going to look at. And it's so funny because yoga is not that way. And that's what I found. And it's just like hearing, and Charlotte was so good and is so good at teaching that idea of listen to your body. It's your body. It's your practice. This is your practice. You may be in a room with other people, but we have 30 different practices going on and it's your practice. And I really do love that thought process. And I think it wasn't competitive. It was very welcoming in this environment of like, this is your practice. Do what your body can do today. If your body can only stay in child's pose today, do that. Like, do what you can do. And I never felt bad taking breaks. And even when I practice now, like, I need breaks. Like, I know my body. It needs breaks. Like, I take breaks. I don't feel bad about it. Like, I don't. But like, I wasn't always that confident with yoga because I needed for me to know those basics to feel like I could even enter a room without anxiety. Because yoga is not a place you want to like be anxious when you're at yoga. Like, it's kind of not the point.
Totally. And you know, that's the other thing too, is you should have the knowledge. Like, if you're practicing and you're moving your bodies in a different way than you're used to, or even if you're used to it, you should know what your body can do, what is a safe alignment for your body, like how do you breathe effectively. Everyone should have this knowledge, right? So you touched on so many great things. And even the fact of like, you did this so many years ago and now you're still feeling it. And just as a testament of how strong and smart our bodies are, you know, and you don't have to do it for 2 hours every day, 5 days a week, which is another one of these like super big stereotypes in yoga, is that like, you're only a good yogi, whatever, yogini, whatever you want to call it, if you practice religiously, ritually every day for your whole life. I mean, there's so many other components of yoga that we don't talk about here, and people don't realize you can do it when you're sitting at your desk, when you're driving your car, before you even get out of bed in the morning, before you go to sleep. Like, there's all these other ways to incorporate a physical practice of yoga into your life. But at the same time, the physical practice of yoga is one of 8 parts of yoga. Like, this is what we don't talk about here, especially in the States or in a Western mindset or in the things that I've really been involved in. It's one of 8. So there are so many other things you can do for your body and your mind and your spirit and all these other things that don't always involve you being with other people, even, or in a studio or
totally
any of that.
I think one of the surprise, so I'm not a super religious person, but I feel like yoga was one of those things that I just spiritually kind of connected with. And it was not something that I like sought out that would happen from it. I just really did feel very connected to the room, the energies. I'm a huge feeler, right? So I could feel the energies of everybody coming into the studio, and like, it can be stressful and you're feeling everyone's like day and what they went through and why they're there. And like, I feel that, like, I can enter a room and absolutely feel everyone. And so starting practices were tough, but then like at the end of practice, the feeling of energy and release and peace in a room, it was really moving and powerful for me. One of the biggest surprises that I learned from yoga was the ability to be in the moment. And
totally.
I didn't know that was part of yoga, and going through and practicing, it's shown me how to be in the moment in other parts of my life. Like, it's shown me how to be in the moment as a mom. It's shown me how to like put the phone down and be in the moment with friends. And the idea of breath and focusing during a practice on your breath has taken me to when I have moments of pressure that I can be in the moment, feel it, go through it, but then be able to like move on from that moment and like let that moment go. And I think that was a big part of yoga. That was a surprise to me, and that I didn't set out. I set out for like the reason to kind of find a natural way to heal my pain. But that was such a powerful thing that has changed my outlook on life.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
and I didn't expect yoga to really change my outlook on life, but it did.
Yeah. Yeah. And when I talk to people about their yoga stories, that usually becomes the case, right? There's this really intense or desire to have this physical practice, or to be drawn for healing a pain, or because you like moving in a hot room and it's challenging and you love the feeling in your body physically when it's done. So most people, in my experience, are drawn to yoga for this physical benefit. And after they practice for a while, myself included, start to get drawn towards a more like slower, mindful, meditative, juicier kind of a practice, right? I love an intense vinyasa flow style class where I can sweat and I can sweat it out. Because what that does for me is it takes my mind out of my body. And it gives me this moment to be in the moment by focusing on my breath. So, and then it gives me this chance to really dig deep and let my body kind of take over and stop thinking about things so I can just breathe and be in the moment.
I think that was the coolest thing for me with vinyasa. Like, I didn't know what I was getting into, and I didn't know it was so breath focused, because I was just like, oh, this class says beginner, check, I'm in, like I didn't enter it with a lot of history or looking up the different types of yoga. And it was fun because it taught me, I do not turn my mind off at night. I'm always one of those people that needs a notebook to like write down my shit so my mind can go to sleep,
Mm-hmm.
and that was one of the things, focusing on the breath. But once I learned it and once I took more and more classes, I really like was able to do that. And the ability to turn my mind off, I never thought would happen. And it does happen for me, with the right coach, with the right guidance. But it really is a mindset and a shift of just really focusing in. So yeah, I mean, that's where just some of those surprises that have come from yoga have just been such a healing thing that I want people to know that they can do it too. And there's so many opportunities to get started.
Yeah. And I think the lessons learned from, yoga as a whole is to do a little bit of research and to dig a little bit into what you are needing in your life, right? If you're needing this physical practice, then learn the physical things. If you're not even sure, there's so many different parts of it. I mean, you just by working on your breath can come to this other moment of being able to turn your mind off. If you're looking to have a little bit of peace because you can't turn your mind off, can you meditate? Can you work on, in the 8 limbs of yoga, there's what's called yamas and niyamas. So these rules are kind of guidelines to live by and restraints, which include like doing no harm, right? So these like simple life things that we can start to shift our mentality about who we are and what we're doing on this planet to come to this little bit of a bigger sense of peace, and to get rid of, the BS that we hear on social media or in these stereotypes of this yoga world of going to a studio and, needing to buy $400 of, some name brand yoga clothes, which are great clothing. Don't get me wrong.
You can throw them out there. Lululemons of the world. I mean, it's so funny. Like, I'm sure they had all the greatest intentions starting a brand, and it just became the carpool couture of life. And I don't know.
Right.
So you don't need that stuff.
I mean, I honestly find like my favorite yoga clothes at Marshall's, leggings for like $15. No joke. They're my favorite.
I found that people go through this when they buy workout clothes. They go through they buy a lot and then they like purge. That's one of the first things they purge. Yeah. So I found so many on tag stuff at thrift stores and like unique thrift. I just found some amazing workout clothes and tags were still on because somebody had this moment of like, I'm going to work out and then I'm not. So I took their moment and now I got stuff for $6.99. Anyway,
yeah, I digress, but I have so many more workout clothes than like normal clothes and all of them have to match anyways. So there's all these stereotypes, and I, starting my yoga journey, got really frustrated with cues that teachers were giving that just didn't make anatomical sense. Like square your hips to the front of the wall. That's just not possible for so many people. I can work towards that. I can have this mindset of like my hips are going towards the front of the wall, and that's a good place to be. But to tell square your hips and have almost this command, people get really intimidated by, and they're like, well, my body doesn't do that, so I can't practice. I'm probably part of this problem, so I'll just call myself out. But having these, Instagrams or social media feeds where there's postures that look flawless and that there's no work behind it, and their heels touch the ground in down dog, and their legs are straight, there's no bend, and I try to be really real with my postures. My heels don't touch the floor in down dog. I have to practice an entire practice to even get them close. My legs aren't always straight. Like I can't do postures because my body doesn't allow it. So this concept that we have to be perfect in a practice when we're in a studio so that someone doesn't look at us and go, oh my God, that person can't do down dog or whatever, right? These judgments, I want to change that. Like that needs to be changed. And
I agree. Let's change that.
Yeah.
Because I look a mess. I mean, it's like those Pinterest, like, here's what it was. Here's what I made. Yeah, I'm the hot mess. Like it is literally, I'm like, I'm sure I look so crazy, but I don't care. Like I've been able to find peace and pain-free natures from yoga. So I'm going to keep going no matter what I look like. But for those of you who have that in the back of your mind, start practicing, because don't let those, so my lesson learned here is don't let those, I can't do it because this, I can't do it because that. Like I'm telling you, I have metal rods in my back and I can do yoga. Right. Like I have limitations physically in there that say you're not flexible. And I said, fuck that. And I'm doing yoga. So, and I am, and I'm flexible and I can do down dog, and I have really tight hamstrings, so I can't touch my toes. And that's something I know that I have to bend my knees to touch my toes. So my folds look different, but those are my folds. And like we're all different, and we all have these, talents physically, and certain things are going to be easier. I can open my hips more than the average person. So I'm noticing that when I'm doing certain positions, I like that open hip feel. Yeah. And a lot of people, that's a challenge for. I can't bend over. Like there's just those things. Yeah. You find the things that you love and that your body loves, and you know that when that part comes in a class, you're going to find your moment. And
well, and that's the idea, right? Is that yoga is for every body. It's always kind of the like punny joke, right? Every dash body, but it's true. And it's not going to look the same from person to person. It's not a cookie cutter type of a activity or a lifestyle. It is going to be different. You're going to have things that you can do that I'm like, I can't do, my chest is too big to do that. And these are real things that we don't talk about because we are expected to have them done a certain way. Someone told me one time, yoga was built for your body. You are not built for yoga, right? Which some people can kind of misconstrue when they first hear it, but yoga was built for your body. Your body was not built for yoga, meaning that you can change, adapt, modify, customize, create variations on a practice or a posture to fit your body, right? You should be able to take this base, this thing that was constructed to heal, and make it work for you versus adapting your body to somehow fit this picture perfect posture that someone said is the right way to do it. So
you got it, everyone, everybody can do yoga. Well, Ashley, thank you so much for hanging out with us today. And this has been so great. And I've learned some more things about yoga that I didn't know. So now I'm excited to go read some books on the 8 principles and learn a little bit more.
This is such a pleasure. Thank you so much for having me here and allowing us to talk about yoga.
Well, I feel we have to end. Namaste.
Namaste.
And thank you all for hanging out with us, and continue the conversation on Instagram. You can find us at Blunt Cuts Podcast.